Welcome to tonight's episode of Here's My Two Cents with me, your host, Keith, 2 Cent Sanders. So, your boy is blowing up. Your boy is blowing up. Follow me along here. So, we went to CPAC a couple weeks ago. We've talked about it a lot. I know. You're kind of sick and tired of hearing about it. But, here's what happened. I get hit up. A friend of mine at work says, "You're not going to believe this. You're famous." I said, "Well, I kind of already knew that. Your boy's on YouTube. Your boy's on Facebook. Your boy's on TikTok. I'm everywhere." So he says, "No, hold on a second. Here's what you don't know. Somebody's making fun of you." I said, "Okay, that's not the first time. Let me know what you're talking about." He says they took one of your TikToks and some guy who claims to be a Republican strategist who had to leave the party because Trump's a horrible person. He took a piece of your video and he's mocking you. So I take a look at it. The guy's got a bit of me from CPAC and he labeled me as an old guy. Kind of hurt my feelings. Kind of hurt my feelings a little bit. But I took a look at this guy and I think this guy maybe is 3 years younger than me. I'll give him 5 years younger than me, tops. So, buddy, if I'm old, we are old. We're old. So I took it as a compliment. I did well enough on TikTok, on my social media, that he found me, and he took me and he wanted to mock me. What's great about it is he never thought that I'd see it. I mean, the chances that I would see it, or that I would be able to defend myself. And that's always great about what they do here. They talk about how they want inclusivity and they don't want to bully people. This is bullying. I can handle it. I don't care. I put myself out there. You want to mock me, mock me. I've had a lot worse said about me. But it's the idea of how they hide, the cowardice of it, that they don't give anyone an actual opportunity to defend themselves. Now, there's someone else on RAMtv.Live who that person also mocked. And I got to tell you, that's where I had a problem. I'm not going to say who it was. I would just say that when you mock somebody who can't defend themselves because they don't even know that you've been mocking them, it doesn't make you look like a good guy. It doesn't make you look smart. It doesn't make you look like an authority on anything. Those that are already looking for you are going to be there for you, as the kids would say. They're here for it, as they would say. You're a coward. You mock people who can't defend themselves, and you mock other people who you think that you can bully and push around. But that being said, your boy is blowing up again. So I get hit up by somebody else I know that says, "You're not going to believe this. You're famous." I said, "I know. We've gone down this path before." He says, "Listen to me. You're on iFunny." I said, "Okay, here we go again." I said, "Am I in a good light or am I in a bad light?" And he goes, "No, it's the video you have where you're talking about minimum wage." Now, to fill you in, if you guys aren't following your boy, you got to get on TikTok. That's where I put all my good stuff, at 2CentKSJ. I want to see you guys over there. I have a video up right now. It's about to push 300,000 views. Not too shabby for your boy. I mean, it's not 600,000 like I've done before, but we'll take 300,000 on this new account. And I pretty much demolish a leftist liberal who's been taught socialism and has been taught that capitalism is bad. He's your standard type to sit at Starbucks sipping his double mocha choca latte grande something or another while he complains about capitalism on his iPhone. So of course I had to get in there. Your boy had to show him what was what. Back to me being famous. They took that video. They put me up on iFunny. I said, "You know what? Let me get on there. Tell these people where they can find your boy, 2 Cent KSJ over on TikTok. We're blowing up. That's how I'm looking at it. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Name that SNL character if you can." All right, so all that being said, all the fun and games being said, we had a pretty big week. The COVID relief bill passed today. We're doing our show a day early. You guys are going to see it tomorrow. Biden is lost and wandering somewhere around in D.C. Cuomo's troubles continue to mount up in New York, and there is truly a crisis at the border. With all of that being said, here are my 2 cents on anything for power. Well, they finally did it. They did it. They passed the COVID relief bill. Couldn't do it in the summer. Couldn't do it in October when, people actually needed it. But they got it done now. And go back to Nancy after the election when she said she would start doing this. She said, "Well, we have a new president now." Yep, that's the important part. That's the important part. Not that you've kept people at home, that you've shut down businesses for good, that you've made people unemployed, that you've taken away their ability. You refuse to give them the ability to make their own money. None of that mattered, Nancy. It's that we have a new president. And now you want to take your victory lap with Schumer, and now you want to proclaim that help is on the way. Let's not forget that folks needed this in the summer. Folks needed this in October, but we couldn't have a win. This would be seen as a win for number 45. We couldn't possibly have that. And I got a lot of flack on social media where people wanted to say the Republicans wouldn't work with them. The Republicans wouldn't work with them. Of course, what is left out is that there were poison pills in that bill. What is a poison pill? Let's say I pass a bill that everyone gets $1 million. But you have to drown a puppy. Nobody wants to drown a puppy. So if I vote against it, they say, you don't want people to get $1 million. No, I don't want them to drown a puppy. No, you don't want people to get $1 million. I make an exaggeration to make the point. One of the poison pills they had was lowering the voting age to 16. We're not going to vote for that. That has nothing to do with COVID. Why is that in there? Of course, at the time, number 45 was talking about how the bill was full of blue state, blue city bailouts. We're not going to vote for that. So, of course, they get to go on with the press, the sycophants in the press, big word of the day, number one. And they're going to cover for them and say, like I said earlier, you don't want people to get $1 million. No, I don't want people to have to drown puppies. So they fill it with these poison pills, such as blue state bailouts and massive, massive non-COVID related spending, and then lowering the voting age to 16. So let's fast forward to now. Now they're declaring help. Help is on the way. It's going to be okay, folks. Help is on the way. They're already declaring that they're going to run on this in 2022. I'm not so sure they want to run on this in 2022. I might encourage them to run on this in 2022. This is not a good bill. This has vast overreaching effects that we're going to feel for years to come. We're going to get in more later about what's in the COVID bill and that it not necessarily is covering COVID. It's a massive, massive spending bill. And of course, that's what number 45 was fighting about this whole time. If this, Nancy, I'm talking to you, Schumer, I know you guys watch me. I know you guys have heard about me. You watch me. If this was about helping the American people, which you're proclaiming you're doing now, that help is on the way, why didn't you segregate the stimulus money from the 16-year-olds voting and from the massive spending and the blue state ballots? Why didn't you separate them? If help is on the way, you're here to help the American people, why didn't you separate them? Because anything for power. We couldn't possibly give a win to Donald J. Trump before the election. We couldn't possibly have the election be affected by an economy that was on the rebound. You couldn't possibly have the unemployment numbers go down because then the economy would be back where it was before COVID hit. And then you couldn't wield it as a weapon against Trump. I want to pose this right now. I want to pose this. I don't think we need it. I don't think we need it. I think we need to open. I think the answer is to open. Right now, according to the Brookings Institute, the unemployment rate nationally, 6.3%. 6.3% is not a horrible number. Absolutely not a horrible number. If you're home and you're hurting, I understand. The answer isn't to hand you $1,400 and say everything's going to be great and to declare that you're lifting people out of poverty. I didn't know that $1,400 a person one time could take people out of poverty. If that was the case, I feel like we should have done that a long time ago. I feel like we've really missed our opportunity. So maybe that's not really the opportunity. Maybe we need to open up. I said just a moment ago, the Brookings Institute has the national unemployment at 6.3%. If you're an open state, you're less than 5%. Open. Look at what the numbers have done. They went up over the winter as expected. Death rate actually dropped over that time because the therapeutics got better. Because we knew who to segregate. We had the testing in place so people knew. People took it seriously. Now, we have this thing called herd immunity that we're reaching because of the amount of people that have had it. And we have these things called vaccines. We have 3 of them now. It is time to open. The answer is not to give people money. It is absolutely not the answer. So I make the argument that the limit for what you make is also too high. So I've already started out by saying I don't think we needed it in the first place. So let's get into the concept of, okay, we're going to get it. So we have to look at what can and can't be done, who and who shouldn't get it. And of course, I'm not talking about the huge overspending on things that have nothing to do with COVID yet. I'm not even there yet. We're just talking right now about the actual COVID that relief money that's going to actual people. That's the only part I'm talking about right now. We're going to get into the overspending here in a moment. So then let's say, okay, we're going to get the money. People need the money. Let's go down this path. People need the money. Let's get these people the money. Okay. Should billionaires get it? Obviously not. Should millionaires get it? Obviously not. So we have to get to a point where there's a reasonable amount of people. Let's take that back. A reasonable income where people need this help. They said $150,000 for a couple, $75,000 for a single person. I'm sorry, if you've been making $75,000 by yourself since last March, I don't think you need any money. If you as a couple are making $150,000 and have since last March, I don't think you have any money. I had people blow me up on social media and say, well, hold on a second. I live in New York. $75,000 isn't a lot of money. First of all, get out of New York. You can leave. And a lot of you are. And by the way, when you come down here to Florida, leave that stuff behind. Leave your liberal blue policies behind. It didn't work. You're not coming here just for the weather. You're not coming here just to see Mickey Mouse. Leave that stuff behind. When you come down here, leave what was up there. But I digress. In regard to them saying, well, that's not enough money for here. Great point. Great point. You want to know why that's a great point? Because a top-down approach does not work. If you're making $75,000 and you live in New York City, you're not doing so hot. If you're making $75,000 and you live in Indianola, Iowa, which is outside of Des Moines, your boy knows some geography, by the way. If you're living in that part of the country, $75,000, you're doing pretty darn well for yourself. You're making $150 between you and your spouse. Very progressive of me to say spouse. If you and your spouse are making $150 in that same area, or heck, let's even say Idaho. You're in Twin Falls, Idaho, and you're making $150, you and your spouse. You don't need this money. But we have a top-down approach because we have liberals and Democrats in charge. We from D.C. know what's best for everyone. So let's pass this massive bill that applies universally, but doesn't actually affect everything universally. And it doesn't make sense, and I can't support it. I don't think we should have done it in the first place. We should have opened. It's time to open. We know how to segregate. We know who's vulnerable. You want to stay home? Stay home. You want to wear a mask, 2 masks? Wear your masks. I'm not even getting into Texas opening right now. Maybe we'll get into that later. You want to wear a mask? Wear a mask. You want to stay home? You stay home. Let's open up. Let's be safe about it. Are we going to pack 50,000 people into a concert hall? Probably not yet. Are we going to get on the cruises? Probably not yet. There's mitigation steps that we could take here. The answer is to open. The answer is not to give out money. But that's how we keep power. That's how we're going to keep the power. You know who else is going to get this money? Prisoners. Prisoners. And they're saying, well, it's going to help the families. They have children and people that are reliant on them. Well, they're not paying taxes. So the it's my money, that doesn't really work because you're not paying taxes. And who's to say there's any accountability for that money? So prisoners are going to get it. And there are reports stating that illegal immigrants are going to get it. I need to do a little more research on that one. But I wouldn't be surprised on that one either. Now, I just said a moment ago, there's a term, well, it's my money. I've had people come at me and say that as well. Well, it's my money. Well, if that's the case, how about you keep your money? How about you just keep it? Let's tax everybody less. Keep your money. Why does it have to go over to Washington for them to then give it back out to us? Let's just keep our money. Crazy ideas, I know, because we have to keep the power. We have to keep us reliant on that federal government, which is going to massively expand due to COVID and due to the fact that they have the House and the Senate right now. All right, what's in the bill? What's in the bill? I'm asking you at home what's in the bill. And I'm asking for 2 reasons. I'm asking because, one, I'm challenging you right now. Have you done the research? Have you looked into trying to find what's in it? Because I have. It's incredibly hard to find what is in this bill. Ron Johnson had the clerks read all 628 pages, I think it was, on the Senate floor. That's great. I can't find it. Anything that's out there that's listed, and I'm going to go through the real good ones here in a moment. Anything that's out there that's listed, I cannot piece together $1.9 trillion. I can't. Can't find $1.9 trillion. It was read on the Senate floor. It's out there. I can't find $1.9 trillion. Let's get into what I do know is in it. Toomey, who's not that great a guy, I don't think, but he put out some information. The information's useful. I'll be happy to take it. Let's get into some of the really, the good ones. Here we go. $270 million for National Endowment of the Arts. Did you know that? Did you? Bet you did. $200 million for the Institute of Museum and Library Services. $91 million for what's being referred to as outreach to student loan borrowers. We need $91 million for that. $50 million for environmental justice. Let that rattle around for a moment. Environmental justice. $570 million for 15 weeks of paid leave for federal employees. You heard me correctly. 15 weeks paid leave. I'm coming back to this one in a moment. I'm going to get through this list first. $126 billion for schools. Here's the cherry. Even if you don't open. You don't have to open. Here's your money. No accountability. Mind you, they got 70 plus billion, and the last one, they've spent 4 of it. Just keep throwing money at that. Just keep throwing money at that. $350 billion for state and local government. This is what Trump fought against before he left. The blue state bailouts. This is absolutely blue state bailouts. And he wouldn't stand for it. I put this together. I put some other portions together. I try adding it up. The best, absolutely the best that I can do is about $1 trillion. I can get to about $1 trillion on this one. But of course it's $1.9 trillion. So where did it go? Juan, if you could, please play for me cut 7.
All the way in the back, blue sweater.
Special interest groups and the pervasiveness in Washington, D.C. really bother me. Do they bother you?
They bother me a lot, and that's why I only have raised $10 million. It's kind of a problem, you know what I mean? Look, folks, you all heard the question. Special interest groups in Washington and lobbyists bother him. Lobbyists aren't bad people. Special interest groups are not bad people. But guess what? They're corrosive. People who accept the money from them aren't bad people, but it's human nature. You go out, Lynn, and bundle $250,000 for me, all legal, and then you call me after I'm elected and say, Joe, I'd like to come and talk to you about something. You didn't buy me, but it's human nature. You helped me. I'm going to say, sure, Lynn, come on in.
Just human nature. That's all that is. That's just human nature. You know what else you notice in there? No stutter. No stutter. I'm done being told he has a stutter. I'm done with it. The man has cognitive problems is what he has. That's from 2008. We talked about it last week. I told you we were going to come back to it. Do you think being able to spend $1.9 trillion might interest these lobbyists? Do you think by any chance that would interest some lobbyists? I think it might. Maybe those people who are getting money for environmental justice, $50 million. That's just a tiny piece of money in $1.9 trillion. It's huge, of course, to you and I. It's an insane amount of money. It's life-changing for you and I. But out of $1.9 trillion, it's grains of rice. Drops in a bucket. Any chance those lobbyists that we were just talking about would be interested in that? You tell me. I'm not here to cast judgment. I'm here to cast so much judgment. Let's go back to some of these ones I really, really like. $270 million for National Endowment of the Arts. Going to stop the spread. $200 million for the Institute of Museum and Library Services. So much research. PPE, ventilators. It's going to take care of all of that. $91 million outreach for student loan borrowers. It's over. We got it. We got this thing in our hands. We are taking it out. That last $91 million right there for outreach is going to seal that deal. Do you think anybody would be interested in 15 weeks off? 15 weeks off. I read into it. I'm going to tell you what I found. You have to use, if you're a federal employee, you have to use your 15 weeks paid medical leave. I'm sorry, paid federal leave. You have to use it between now and March and October. Sorry, boss, can't come in today. Sorry, boss, can't come in this week. Ooh, I'm feeling warm this morning. Sorry, boss, I might be in next week. All you need is symptoms. All you need is symptoms. If you want to go get the shot, paid off. If somebody you know has symptoms, paid leave. If you're going to go to the doctor because you have symptoms, paid leave. You have symptoms, paid leave. Someone you know has symptoms, paid leave. 15 weeks of it. Would anybody like 15 weeks off? But of course, they're going to be of the highest moral caliber and fine Americans. I know that they're all going to do this absolutely the right way. The $350 billion that I mentioned for state and local government, that's the blue state bailouts that I mentioned that Trump fought so much against. Now we have this weird situation where these states lock down, but there's actually, according to the Bureau of Economic Analysis, they're reporting that there's been record revenue in these state and local, in these localities. I wonder why. Maybe because we keep pumping federal money into it. Maybe because we added an extra $600 to the unemployment insurance and people were sitting at home making more money sitting at home than they were in their jobs and weren't paying taxes. Maybe. Maybe there's this extra federal money, but let's get more of it. If some is good, more is better. $350 billion for state and local government, even though there's an excess. What else did we have in here? Oh, here's another one. I love this one. Love this one. $126 billion for the schools so they can open safely. Somebody please explain to me Florida. Somebody explain to me Florida. We're open. I know it. I live here. We're open. I've talked to you about it before. If you're new to the channel, let me bring you through how we've been doing it in Florida. The governor gave us choices. You want to know why? Because that's how it's done. He's not here to tell us how to live our lives. He is here to give us the freedom. No, he doesn't even give us the freedoms. He's here to not get in the way of our freedoms. He said, I can't possibly tell everyone in this state how to live their lives. I'm not doing these state mandates and shutdowns. I'm not doing it. If you in Miami need to, run that way, Miami. If you in the smaller central areas need to do it differently, do it differently. Up in the panhandle, it's differently. It's done differently. It's different up there. And we're running it safely. Universal Studios has been open. Disney World has been open. Please explain to me how our schools are open if you need $126 billion more dollars on top of the $70+ billion you already got. Somebody explain how Florida is doing it. We haven't revamped our ventilation systems. We haven't gone through all these gyrations and hoops to jump through before we can walk in the door. This is how we do it in Florida. If someone tests positive, they are removed. You get a notification. The one or two that are around them regularly, they're also segregated. They're put in a quarantine because we quarantine the sick and the vulnerable, not the young and the healthy. So now, to further make sure that the children can continue in their education while not getting anyone else sick potentially or in danger of getting sick, that class will then stay to themselves for the next several days. Why? So the kids can continue to seamlessly continue their education, keep going down the road, but we're not exposing them to other children, thereby not exposing anyone potentially to the virus. So the kids go home. The kids at school continue forward, and we've yet to have a flare-up, and then the kids get back integrated in a safe manner back into the school. They're kept at a distance, and we're doing it safely. But I'm being told that I need $126 billion more dollars for these other schools to open up, even though the science shows that the kids don't really get it. The science shows that they're not passing it to adults. The science is showing us that teachers aren't getting it from children and dying. But who cares? Here's $126 billion. Oh, and by the way, like I mentioned earlier, no need for accountability. You don't have to open. We do not have to open things around in here. Here's what I want to talk about in what disappoints me, not in the bill, but in us. There is polling that shows that a majority of the people in this country support the COVID relief bill. It's estimated that 9 to 10% is actually going to Americans to address the impacts of COVID financially. 90 to 91% is going to not COVID. But Schumer's going to tell you it's from the impacts of COVID and from the shutdowns that we've had to do that they're fixing it. Absolutely not the case at all. I'm disappointed because us Americans here, I get $1,400. I mentioned it earlier how people said, well, it's my money. Why wouldn't I get it back? How about you keep your money? How about you just keep your money? But no, they hear I get $1,400. And I get money for my kids too. Gimme, gimme, gimme. We here give us money. Who cares? Who cares, right? Now, there's one I've left out. This one's sneaky. This one is sneaky. So it's so-called child tax credit. It's applied when you file your taxes because it's a child tax credit. And for a lot of people, it results in a refund that comes back to them. So as part of the COVID relief bill, we are now monthly going to be giving $300 per child under the age of 5 or 5 and under. If you're above 5 to 17, I believe it is, maybe 18, but up to 17, $250 per child every month. The reasoning for this is it will help people because they can better make their ends meet, pay the bills along the way. Again, how about you just tax me less and I'll keep that money myself. Second of all, this is a test bed for universal basic income. They're giving out this money for the next year. This is, mark my words, this is a test bed for universal basic income. They're going to give money out to people from the federal government every month. Or, again, I keep saying it, how about you just tax people less? Let me choose to do what I want to do with it. I've got children. You're just going to give me money. You're just going to give me money. How about you just don't take money from me? Why do I have to give it to you? Let's cut that part out. I don't trust you with my money. How about I keep it? There's one thing that I'm happy about, and when it comes to this COVID relief bill. The $15 an hour minimum wage did not get passed. Now, it's being shown by the press and by the left, the liberals, that it was the Republicans that kept people from getting it. This $15 an hour minimum wage could not even have been in the COVID relief bill, and here's why. They used a process that's known as budget reconciliation. The budget reconciliation process allows for a simple majority. Even though it's 50-50, Kamala Harris comes in as the vice president, president of the Senate, as it were, and casts the deciding vote. That can only be applied for anything that affects the budget and or the deficit in the nation. $15 an hour does not fall in that category. So they get to go on TV and say the Republicans wouldn't do it. We think that $15 an hour, we know that $15 an hour would lift people out of poverty, which it won't. But it was those dirty Republicans that wouldn't give it to them. No, according to the parliamentary rule, I believe is what it's called, it was shown that due to their process of using budget reconciliation, they couldn't even put it in there anyway. But of course, the press won't cover it that way because this is all for power. If they have people dependent on the federal government, please give me more money, federal government, they will vote them back in. These are the people that are giving me money. These are the people that provide to me. They want you dependent on them to keep them in power. So all this being said, you could look at where it all started. It all started with Biden. Biden said, here's $1.9 trillion. I've got a plan. I've got a vision. Follow me to the promised land. Throws out $1.9 trillion, gives it to the subcommittees. They divvy it up, and they throw it back out there. This is one of Joe's bright ideas. Bright, shining light that is Joe Biden. Please, Juan, can you play for me cut one? Let's see how well Joe Biden is doing right now.
Just want to thank you both, and I want to thank the former general. I keep calling him general, but the guy who runs that outfit over there. I want to make sure we thank the secretary for all he's done to try to implement what we just talked about.
And then if I could just...
Let's go, you guys. Come on, press. We're going to move out. Let's go. Come on, press. Let's go. Come on, let's go. Crisis at the border, sir. Let's go, you guys. Come on. Come on, let's go. Thank you, guys.
One more thing. The vast majority of economists, left, right, and center, from Wall Street to the private economic polling initiatives. The economists, as I said, left, right, and center, say, in addition to the needs the people have, we need this to grow the economy.
Everything's fine, folks. Everything is fine. There is nothing to see here. Everybody forgets the name of their Secretary of Defense. Everybody forgets that. Everybody forgets that the outfit over there is the Pentagon. The Pentagon. That everyone knows is the center of the military universe. It's that outfit over there. On International Women's Day, his sole job was to stare at a screen and read it. Couldn't keep up. Could not keep up. Then he's wandering around a hardware store. And you hear them, and we're going to get to this in a little bit. All right, friends, time to go. All right, friends, time to go. All jokes aside, the man has cognitive issues. And you have to all know that what's going to happen soon, and I think it's already started, the media is going to start swaying public opinion away from Joe Biden. Now, you have to remember, they spent a year plus telling you that everything's fine. He doesn't have cognitive issues. And he's Papa Joe, he's a moderate. Of course, he's not a moderate. This is far more progressive, his agenda, than even Barack Obama. And the media has spent all this time telling you that he's okay. Now they have to start swaying it the other way because he can't possibly just show up and then kick the guy out. So I believe they're starting, and if I can find the clips, I'll show it to you guys next week. They're starting to say things along the lines of, well, he doesn't have the best memory. That's where it starts. That's where it starts. They're also going to start saying, well, the people on the right and the conservative media are saying this and that, and that's bad. But then they're going to start talking about, and if that were true, what would we do about it? It would all be hypothetical. Then once the hypothetical gets more and more accepted, then they start talking about what would happen after that. So when they were in the primary, they were looking at what they had for a field. Who could possibly, in their eyes, beat Donald Trump? They all rallied around Biden, who wasn't particularly doing that well at the time. This was going to South Carolina, I believe. All of a sudden, anybody who was left dropped out, and everybody got in behind Joe Biden. Somehow Kamala Harris, who didn't even make it to her home state for a primary and had already dropped out, somehow she gets picked for vice president. And then Joe Biden wins. They told me he wins. They told me he got 81 million votes. I didn't get to count them all. I guess that's what happened. Now, he's out front. He's just a nice guy, but this is going to keep happening. This is going to keep happening. And all that they did with dropping out, getting behind Biden, was all to get out number 45 and to get that power. This COVID relief bill that we've already gone into, you need to understand with this administration and potentially the administration that's going to take over for him, if they haven't already taken over, is the first of many steps. This universal basic income, which they're not calling universal basic income, but it is another step. Proof positive that this test bed that they've put there, this is how they want to go forward to absolutely transform this country. I've been advocating, if you guys have been watching this show, and I know you have, and you tell all of your friends about it, I've been advocating that we cannot let the media and this administration lull us to sleep. That everything's okay. Nothing to see here, folks. This massive overhaul that they're going to do through the COVID relief bill and H.R. 1, which we'll get more into as we go along, because that's the next big one. Stick with me. We'll probably go into that one next week. H.R. 1 is going to be a big one. This is how they're going to absolutely transform this country. I'm maintaining, and I'll let the beans out. Spill the beans? I'll let the cat out of the bag, one of those. I'll let you know that this is an overreach that I think is going to hurt them. I mentioned earlier how they said they're going to run on this. Okay, run on it. I think the American people are going to see that this is a vast overreach, and you have drastically increased the size of government, and I don't think that they're going to be all too keen on it. They have to keep Biden propped up as we go forward because it helps to keep their power. But he is a smokescreen. Now, Biden is not going to get any coverage from the media. They're absolutely complicit in this. Joe was going to be Mr. Transparent. He said so on the campaign trail. / from his basement for months. He was Mr. Transparent. When he was president-elect and he was reporting from the office of the president-elect, which doesn't exist, he told us he's going to be Mr. Transparent. Okay, let's take a look at how transparent he's been so far. Juan, can you please play for me cut 2?
And just a quick follow-up on a different subject. You mentioned last week that the president is expected to give a formal press briefing.
Press conference, yeah.
Yes, before the end of the month.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a commitment. Before, in the next few weeks, we will see him and take questions and follow-ups and so forth.
Yeah, he has done about 40 Q&As since he took office, but in terms of a formal press conference, which I understand there's a big focus on, yes, we will have one before the end of the month.
There's the good old captain of the debate team, girl next door, Jen Psaki, right out front, being all kinds of transparent. What was left out there was Joe Biden's been president for over 45 days at this point. He's had 0, count them, 0 press conferences. She wants to mention Q&As. These Q&As that she's talking about are people shouting questions at him and him not necessarily answering any of the questions. Does this media push back? Of course not. All Jen Psaki has to do is say she's going to circle back, right? It's the circle back girl. She'll circle back. No follow-ups, no pressing. They're hesitant, but they're downright worried, I would say, fearful of doing their actual investigative jobs. They're supposed to be the fourth estate. They're supposed to be there to hold the powerful accountable, to speak truth to power, to hold the powerful accountable. Yet they almost don't even want to ask and say, well, we got a lot of people out there asking about press conferences. Can you do one, please? Sorry, not yet. Okay, sorry, can't do it. So these Q&As that she's talking about, you know what? I'll let Joe speak for himself. Juan, can you please play for me cut 3?
You said a return to normalcy could happen by Christmas. What does that look like, Mr. President?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Do you think conviction is possible?
Thank you very much.
Do you think conviction is possible, Mr. President?
And I'm happy to take questions if that's what I'm supposed to do, Nance, whatever you want me to do.
I'll take questions if you want me to, Nance. No, cut the feed! Cut the feed! Get them off the air! Those are the Q&As that we're talking about. Mr. President, I have questions this morning. Mr. President, they had a conviction. Smile and nod, Joe. Smile and nod. Just transparency from here to there, up, down, left and right. Complete transparency. Shout all the questions you like, folks. Shout them out. He'll hear them, probably. He might think of some of them. This was the return to normalcy. They told us there'd be a return to normalcy. We'll shout questions at you. You don't have to answer. We don't have to do follow-ups. Your press secretary can just say that she's going to circle back. We're returning to normalcy. This gets me into something I talk about often on here. Folks, you have to continue to find the smaller outlets like us. We are, of course, a conservative-based outlet, but at the same time, they're squashing us and pushing us down further and further and further. The big outlets, of course, on the left aren't going to show any of this, and the ones that we know on the right, except for a few, they're really not keeping this out there. Continue to stay with us, the smaller outlets. We're doing everything we can to show this to you. We know that you guys don't have all this time to go searching through videos. I spend a lot of time doing this. I do it because I really want to get the message out. People tell me that I speak well, I have a good presentation, and I decided to do this show. Juan came to me and said, hey, would you like to have a show? You've got a good voice. People need to hear it. Okay, I'm putting it out there. I want to do this. I'll do the legwork. We'll work together. We'll find this stuff. We'll get it forward for you. Continue to stick with us. We're going to keep doing the best that we can. Find other smaller outlets. I'm okay with that too. There was a lot of networking I saw when I was at CPAC. We're all trying to get the message out. Remember, try to stay with us, folks. They're going to continue to squash us down, but we're going to continue to do what we can. back to good old Joe being Mr. Transparent. They can't let him flounder too much. They can't let him talk too much. If they do, you saw what I showed earlier, they can't let him do it. Now, he could pull a Cuomo. He could say he's not going to talk and then just not stop talking. Cuomo, for the troubles that he's had, this all started with him putting out a tweet saying something along the lines of, we understand that these allegations have been made, no further comment. And he won't stop commenting. That's all he's doing. I guess maybe we could ask that of Biden, but Cuomo can't stop talking up there. And man, do those troubles continue to mount. He's got a lot of problems coming his way. But what they're doing is distracting us again. That was Distract and Conquer was last week. And this is all in an effort to keep their power. Not Mario, his father was Mario. Andrew, sorry, there's so many Cuomos. I almost talked about Fredo. Andrew Cuomo is the current governor, obviously. Extremely powerful. Extremely powerful. What are we not talking about here? We're not talking about the COVID-related deaths from his decision to send elderly, infected patients back to the nursing homes. We're not talking about that. And I called, I believe it was on the show last week, and yes, I'll pat myself on the back and break my arm doing it when I'm right, which is often. I called that they're going to continue to use this to distract. They're not going to cover the COVID-related deaths, and if and when he should be pushed out, it will be due to these sexual harassment allegations that are coming against him. And it's happening more and more. It's starting to happen so much you can't ignore it. Now, that being said, as I was preparing for the show tonight, there was a breaking headline that there was more graphic detail that was out from one of the more recent accusers. And they've added to their allegations. I immediately went over to CNN. Nothing. What they've been doing for the last few days in order to get credit for covering it is one tiny little link in the bottom right corner. One tiny little link in the bottom right corner. What was on their site at the time? What am I getting in the stimulus bill? They're not going to cover this at all. Can't possibly do it because they have to help the Democrats keep their power. In his state, he's facing the possibility of impeachment, but it was filed by the minority, and they're not covering that either. That's a really hard one to find. These articles of impeachment were actually filed. They're not going to get him on the COVID-related deaths that are tied to him. They wanted to say that every death in America was in Trump's hands, but an actual decision that drove higher deaths, not tied to Biden. I'm sorry, not tied to Andrew Cuomo at all. But you're not going to find coverage over that. What's really gotten me kind of disgusted about this is the media saying, people in the media saying things like, well, if there's a fourth who comes up, oops. If there's a fifth one, oops. If there's a sixth one, They tried to destroy Kavanaugh. All of them. And Cuomo was on that. Now, Justice Kavanaugh faced allegations at the time, and they wanted him basically locked up and burned at the stake. Cuomo had said things along the lines of, there's no due process here for this situation. But now we have Cuomo in this situation with allegations, and he wants his due process, which I advocate for. And the media isn't just declaring, well, it seems true. It's real. There's a lot of them, too. There's a lot of them. Juan, please play for me cut 4. Let's hear what these accusers have to say.
Anna Liz was a policy and operations aide in the Cuomo administration nearly a decade ago, making accusations that are similar to the accusations of other young women who've come forward to accuse the governor of acting inappropriately. She says he kissed her on the cheek and posed for a picture with her, but her accusations have a number of twists.
I'm not claiming sexual harassment per se. I'm just saying that it wasn't a safe space for young women to work, or women in general.
2 of the 3 women accusing the New York governor of sexual harassment speak out, both former employees.
Without explicitly saying it, he implied to me that I was old enough for him and he was lonely.
But there is another more troubling accusation, and it involves Lindsay Boylan, the first of 5 women to charge Governor Cuomo with sexual harassment.
Let me start off by saying I'm not here to cast judgment on these people. I made a joke about casting judgment earlier. In this situation, I want to be very sincere. It is not my place to cast judgment one way or the other when it comes to anyone coming forward with accusations and with allegations. Not my place. Not my place to discuss the veracity of these claims. That's not my place to do that. I am, however, going to advocate that these women be heard, they be taken seriously, and then due process happens. That is the universal application of the law. These women are to be heard, to be taken seriously, and then due process is applied, just like everyone else. I want to be very clear and very sincere about that. I want this process to be done correctly, where the women are heard, they are taken seriously, and due process happens going forward. In listening to what they've been saying, there is at least a lesson, the most basic of lessons, to treat the people with whom you interact with respect and dignity. I don't think from what they were saying that they were being treated with respect and dignity. Take that lesson for you going forward. When you are interacting with people, make sure you're approaching it from no less of a stance of treating another human being with respect and dignity. This will probably be the undoing of Andrew Cuomo. However, that being said, it's not going to cause him to be pushed out now. I've heard a theory. It's not my own, but I'm actually agreeing with it. I think the way it's going to happen is he just won't run next time. They're not going to get him out. He's not going to resign. An impeachment put forth by the Republicans might get some bipartisan support. The reality here is he's most likely just not going to run again. Now they have AG, their Attorney General, Letitia James, I believe her name is. She wants that job. She's the one who had the report that showed that Cuomo, we'll kick this all off, that Cuomo underreported the nursing home deaths by some 50% potentially. And de Blasio, the garbage heap that he is, has ran New York City into the ground. Why not run the whole state into the ground? He wants that job. They're coming for you, Andrew. They can't, most likely, admit that the COVID policies didn't work. You know, the media is not going to admit that because remember, they gave him an Emmy. He was the antithesis to Trump. He was the truthful, honest, concise, clear, level-headed guy. His policies worked. Trump's policies killed everybody. The media is not going to show that it was COVID as the reason he shouldn't go forward. It was these sexual harassment allegations. That was the reason that he took it down. Can't be that it was COVID that took him down because that would be a threat to their power. So before we go forward, I want to talk a little bit about what's going on down at the border. I'm going to make a jump here. We've been talking about Biden getting lost. We've been talking about the COVID bill. We've been talking about Andrew Cuomo's problems. Something I'm going to introduce tonight that we'll get more into going forward is there is a legitimate crisis at the border. They can spin it 6 ways to Sunday all they want. I'm about to get into that here in a moment. There's a legitimate crisis at the border, and it comes down to the language they're using is a more compassionate approach. No, you're opening the doors, you're opening the gates, you're saying come on in. We've ended the Remain in Mexico policy, which said when we catch you at the border, you have to stay in Mexico for your court date. Now, they're not calling it catch and release, but we're going to catch you, and then you will be let into the country with a date to return. And we have a massive influx of children and families. So, of course, we have to put children places. Now, we're not putting them in cages, right? Juan, can you please play for me cut 5?
And Jacob, now there's an increase in the number of children crossing the border without their parents.
There are, Shep, and I think, the important context for that is during every presidential transition, you do see an uptick in people crossing the southwest border, including unaccompanied migrant children. And I think where you see some bipartisan pushback on the Biden administration tonight and this week is over the use of what's called temporary influx facilities. You might remember the Tornillo tent city in the desert during the family separation crisis, or the Homestead facility down there in South Florida. The reason that people are upset about this, both left and right, is that these are unlicensed facilities. The oversight mechanisms for these facilities are not in place in the way that they would be for a permanent shelter. These are not the facilities that were referred to as kids in cages. They're not.
These are certainly not the facilities known as kids in cages. He specifically told us that. It is true. You know what? It actually is true. It actually is true. These were the facilities that were referred to as concentration camps for children. as per Biden and as per Harris on the campaign trail. So well done, sir. Well done. You know that people know that term, kids in cages. These are not the kids in cages. These are the ones that they said were concentration camps. So kudos to you. Well done, sir. Go back to the beginning of that where he said, let me give you the context. Gross. Gross. Let me give to you the way that you should be looking at this. Let me set for you the stage so that way you see it the way I want you to see it. Let me give to you the lens by which you need to look through to make sure that you see it correctly. Let me give you the context is absolutely code for let me tell you what to think. Let me tell you what to think. And man, Shepard Smith is so greasy. That dude, I just can't stand him. I absolutely can't stand him. I do absolutely love that they called it the family separation crisis. Did you catch that one too? There was the family separation crisis. So when there's people brought in and the families are separated and they go to this exact facility, when that happens under Trump, it's the family separation crisis. It's real. They came, they had to separate them, they had to put the children in these facilities, family separation crisis. Under Joe Biden, it's humane. It's not a family separation crisis. It's being humane. These facilities were open during Trump, unacceptable. Open during Biden, not only are they acceptable, we're using special application of the rules when it comes to COVID. First of all, they were opened up, not kids in cages. I know. You've already told me that. I see it the way you want me to see it. However, we have COVID to contend with. So we couldn't open this up to full capacity. CDC says 50%. 50%. Okay. Well, now we have so many, and it's not a family separation crisis. It's not. But now we have so many, the CDC says, you know what? 100%. Go to 100%, but keep in mind, you're probably going to get some COVID positive patients. Meanwhile, schools are still closed in America. Schools are still closed across this country. CDC has given special guidance for this facility to house migrants, as they're being called. Migrants. They're allowing them to go to 100%. Just let it simmer. Just let it simmer. I got one more for you. Juan, can you please play for me cut 6?
Border Patrol agents have made over 108,000 apprehensions along the Rio Grande Valley sector this year alone, including unaccompanied minors and family units. Abbott says agents are overwhelmed, and smugglers see this as an opportunity to bring large groups of people and drugs into the United States.
108,000 apprehensions. I saw another statistic that showed 3,500 families and children every single day over the border. That smuggling you heard him talking about, that's humans they're smuggling. And it's not the smuggling where they say, let me get you away from this horrible life that you're in, and I'm going to smuggle you across the border to the land of freedom. I'll let you put 2 and 2 together. It's an extremely sensitive subject here on YouTube. I'm not even going to allude to it. But you are smuggling humans across the border. I will let you decide for yourself what you think those humans are being smuggled across the border for. What do you think they're being smuggled for? I'll talk around it because I want to stay on the platform. I want to continue, like I said, to get this conservative message out. This influx of migrants, as they're called, and their children are future Democrat voters. They know that. They know the vast majority of them are going to vote Democrat in the future, which ensures they keep their power because anything, absolutely anything for power. You could spin it and try to say that it happens at every election that comes around. But when you say, folks, we're going to be more humane, which officials in his cabinet have at least alluded to the idea that the idea of saying that it's going to be more humane may have enticed people to come over. I've made this analogy in the past. If I leave my water spigot on outside and my neighbor comes over, keeps collecting my water, and I have to pay for that water, and I don't want him to come over anymore, turn the spigot off. Heck, I can even put a fence around it, a wall, if you will. Now, if the next guy comes into my house and he takes the wall down and he turns the spigot back on, the neighbor's going to come over and take the water. If you don't want them coming over, turn off the incentives. What the last president did was he took away incentives. He didn't say, if you come here and I catch you, I'm going to release you into America, and yeah, I'm sure you'll come back. He said, you get here, you go back. You go back. You can wait over there. He didn't welcome them in and say, just come on in. You can be here. He turned off the spigot, and he built that wall. Unfortunately, because they couldn't get it funded, it didn't get completed. And I'm going to go deep cut on you here. It was Paul Ryan. It was Paul Ryan when he was Speaker of the House. We had the House, we had the Senate, we had the White House. Trump wanted that wall. Paul Ryan did not take up the budget for that wall. I put that at Paul Ryan's feet. And then, of course, once we lost the House, the Democrats did absolutely everything they could to keep that from happening. I went deep on you there, but that one's been bugging me for a while. This is getting out of hand at the border, and it's going to continue to get worse. They're asking already for volunteers to go down to the border in order to handle this massive influx of people who are all wearing Biden shirts, mind you. Still cannot figure out how they got the shirts, but they got shirts. I don't know, maybe go down there with some water? Maybe go down there with some medicine? No, let's bring them shirts. It makes a really, really nice picture. This is part of the overreach. This is part of the rebuilding that I've been talking about that can be reversed when we take back the Congress, both chambers, the House and the Senate. That happens in 2022. I'm going to keep reminding you. There's always a dip in voter participation in the midterms between presidential elections. We're going to go out there and force. We're going to put, like number 45 said, strong conservative Republicans in there. We need to take back that House. We need to take back that Senate, and we can reverse this in time for 2024. And with all of that being said, that has been my 2 cents on anything for power.